Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. In the US presidential election, all eyes are on the vote count in the key states to decide the race for the White House. Joe Biden is pushing closer to the 270 electoral college votes needed to win the presidency. He has secured victories in the battlegrounds of Wisconsin and Michigan. Incumbent President Donald Trump has taken Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Missouri, and Texas. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign says it is challenging vote counts in Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, and Michigan. Kosovo's President Hashim has resigned in order to face charges of war crimes at a special court based in The Hague. The president is facing charges over his role in the 1990s War of Independence, which left over 10,000 people dead. Pakistan has rejected Indian propaganda against the Kartarpur corridor, facilitating a visa-free border crossing for Indian Sikh pilgrims. In a statement, the Foreign Office said India is trying to malign the peace corridor and create religious disharmony. The Sikh community has also snubbed India's unwarranted objections to the managerial affairs of the corridor. Over 1 million people around the world have tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The global number of cases has topped 48 million with more than 1.2 million deaths. The US has recorded highest daily cases of over 1.2 thousand as its caseload soars over 9.4 million. India's death toll has topped 123,000 with infections tally crossing 8.3 million. In Pakistan, 26 more people have died of the virus overnight, taking the toll to 6,893. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. In the US presidential election, all eyes are set on the vote count in key states to decide the race for the White House. Each candidate needs 270 electoral college votes to win the presidency. More in this report.
Officials in Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania states count ballots as the world awaits the outcome of the 2020 U.S. election. Democrat Joe Biden is pushing closer to the 270 electoral college votes needed to win the presidency. He has secured victories in the battlegrounds of Wisconsin and Michigan. Biden believes he pretty much has the keys to the Oval Office in his pocket, but stopped short of claiming outright victory.
And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
Incumbent President Donald Trump has taken Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Missouri, and Texas. The Trump campaign says it is challenging vote counts in Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, and Michigan.
The Democrats know that the only way that they could win this election is to cheat in Pennsylvania. And we've seen it from day one. We found ballots in drainage ditches. They're not letting our poll watchers watch the polls. They're not letting them inside. There's video after video of them passing out collateral material in polling sites all over Philadelphia. They're trying to cheat.
Some political analysts are surprised by exit polls data that showed President Trump has increased his support among black voters, Hispanic men, and white women more than he gained in 2016.
Meanwhile, protesters have taken to the streets in multiple U.S. states demanding a thorough count of ballots cast in the presidential election. This comes after President Donald Trump called for a halt to vote counting and vowed to mount a challenge in the Supreme Court. More in this report.
From California to Pennsylvania, Americans are chanting, "Every vote counts." Hundreds gathered at Oakland City Hall in California to express anger over Trump's announcement. They urged state lawmakers to count each vote. Over in New York, police have arrested dozens of protesters as they wound through Manhattan streets.
Because this is a critical time for the country where a fascist president is trying to stage a coup, and we're here to say that every vote must be counted. And you know, the election should go through the real process and not be hijacked by his schemes to steal it.
Count every vote as every vote counts is also being echoed in Pennsylvania. The state, with largest troves of electoral votes, remains up for grab. Trump's campaign says it has filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania to halt vote counting, arguing officials had failed to allow fair access to counting sites. However, the state's governor, Tom Wolf, has vowed he will do everything in his power to make sure that every vote counts.
Our election officials at the state and local levels should be free to do their jobs without fear, without intimidation, without attacks. These attempts to subvert the democratic process are simply disgraceful.
Weary from one of the most bruising U.S. presidential races in modern times, Republican and Democratic voters alike are in a state of high anxiety as counting continues in major battlegrounds.
Kosovo President Hashim Apache has resigned in order to face charges of war crimes at a special court based in The Hague. The president is facing charges over his role in the 1990s War of Independence, which left over 10,000 people dead. At a news conference, Apache said he made the decision to protect the integrity of the presidency of Kosovo. According to a draft indictment revealed in June, Apache said his allies committed nearly 100 murders and other atrocities against various ethnicities. The Hague-based court is governed by Kosovo law, but is staffed by international judges and prosecutors. Pakistan has rejected Indian propaganda against the Kartarpur corridor, facilitating visa-free border crossing. Prime Minister Imran Khan. During his stay, the visiting dignitary held meetings with Pakistan's top civilian and the military leadership. The Pakistani leadership apprised the visiting dignitary of the ongoing Indian atrocities in occupied Kashmir. He was accompanied by a high-level delegation. The two countries have signed a number of agreements to boost trade ties. A contingent of Russian armed forces has arrived in Pakistan for a 2-week-long joint military exercise. The Pakistan military's media wing said the exercise is aimed at sharing experiences in the counter-terrorism domain. Skydiving and rescue operations will be highlights of the exercise. The military drills will go on until November the 21st. Afghan peace negotiator Abdullah welcomes a joint statement by Pakistan and the EU that called for a ceasefire in Afghanistan. In a tweet, Abdullah condemned a spike in violence in the country and stressed the need to boost peace efforts. This comes a couple of days after a terrorist attack on Kabul University left more than 20 students dead and many others wounded. In the statement, Pakistan and the EU urged all the sides in Afghanistan to end violence. They also reaffirmed their commitment to the Afghan peace process. Azerbaijan says it has forced Armenian troops to retreat from Agdere and Khojavand regions after combat operations. The Azeri Defense Ministry said Armenian forces suffered many casualties during the fighting. It added that the civilian settlements in Goranbay and Tata regions were fired upon by the Armenian forces. The ministry said the attacks on the Azeri positions came from the direction of Barad, Chambarak and Vardanis areas of Armenia. Earlier, President Ilham Aliyev said Azerbaijan's army liberated 7 more villages in the Upper Karabakh region. Over 1,200 people have been killed since the fighting started on 27th of September. Turkey has vowed to respond in the strongest way to France's decision to dissolve the Turkish Grey Wolves group. Earlier, French government disbanded the Grey Wolves, a wing of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's political party's ally. Turkey's foreign ministry said Paris has to protect the freedom of assembly and expression of Turks in France. In a statement, the ministry said the ban shows the French government is now completely under Armenian influence. It accused Paris of double standards and hypocrisy as it allows the Kurdistan Workers' Party to be active in France. Ankara considers PKK a terrorist organization. Turkey says Kurdistan Workers' Party has killed at least 3 civilians in the country's southeastern Hakkari province. The defense ministry says the terrorists attacked the construction workers in Derechik district with missiles. In a statement, it said 2 of the workers succumbed to their injuries after being taken to the hospital. The ministry added the site of the attack was subjected to intense fighting from the air and land. It said later in the day, 5 attackers were killed in an operation in the Semdinli district in Hakkari. In Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says the army has succeeded in containing a rebel attack in the northern Tigray region. It was deployed to quell an uprising by the Tigray People's Liberation Front that sparked fears of a civil war. In a national address, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the army has also managed to retake key locations in the region. He did not mention any casualties or whether fighting was continuing, but he added that the government would conduct more operations in the coming days. Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has expressed alarm over reports of armed clashes in northern Ethiopia. He called for speedy measures to de-escalate tensions and ensure a peaceful resolution to the dispute. Sudan says the latest round of the talks with Egypt and Ethiopia over a dam on Blue Nile have failed. The video conference negotiations started on Sunday and were meant to last for a week but have been terminated. Sudan's water ministry said ministers of 3 countries agreed to end the talks over Ethiopia's dam. In a statement, it said Sudan proposed granting a bigger role to African Union observers to help mediate. But the ministry added Ethiopia accepted while Egypt rejected the Sudanese proposal. Egypt's irrigation ministry spokesperson said the meeting failed to bridge gaps and make any tangible progress. Meanwhile, Ethiopia said 3 could not agree on items such as the basis for the upcoming negotiation and the time frame. In India, more than 20 people are feared dead as a boat carrying over 50 passengers capsized in Bihar state's Ganges River. Local officials say 2 bodies have been recovered, while divers have rescued 25 people. The officials said the rescue efforts are still ongoing. Eyewitnesses say there were motorbikes and cattle on the boat that capsized near the riverbank. Capsizing accidents are frequent in Bihar, where people risk their lives to travel in often overcrowded boats. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Indonesia has fallen into its first recession in 22 years as the coronavirus pandemic continues to take its toll. Southeast Asia's biggest economy saw growth fall by 5.32% in the second quarter of 2020. It fell 3.49% in the third quarter of the year compared to the same period in 2019. The last time this happened during 1998 Asian financial crisis. Authorities have predicted that 3.5 million people could lose their jobs due to the coronavirus downturn. Indonesia has the highest infection rate in the region. China says it will increase its imports to $22 trillion in the next 10 years. Addressing the China International Import Expo in Shanghai, President Xi Jinping said big countries must lead by example. Xi said major economies need to act on sound principles, while the president called on the developing countries to play an active role in sharing responsibilities. He said there is the need for openness and cooperation to deal with the uncertainties during the pandemic. The president urged all countries to protect the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization as its cornerstone. The Chinese president also called for improving the rules of global economic governance to build an open world economy. U.S. stocks have jumped at open on hopes the winner of the U.S. presidential election would soon be determined. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is trading by about 1.5%. The S&P 500 gains about more than 1% at the start of the trading day. The Nasdaq Composite is also up by over 2%. Oil prices fell as Democrat Joe Biden edges closer to the White House in a nail-biting presidential election. Meanwhile, some 751,000 Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.